Madam Chair, we're about 1 minute out from the meeting, and we have, it looks like 11 members present. We do need a quorum, we need 13. We're almost there. We usually get attendees right in that last minute. Madam Chair, we do now have a quorum of our members and are ready for you to call the meeting to order.
Oh, great. We call this meeting to order April 13th, 2021. Our Leon Williams, San Diego County Human Relations Commission. Glad to see everyone, and let's get started with a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Member Arton will be joining us closer to 10:30 due to a conflict. Member Chavez Peterson. Member Clark, Kate Clark, excuse me.
Present.
Present.
Is that both Kate and Cinnamon? Okay, I heard Kate Clark present and Cinnamon Clark present, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Member De Los Rios?
Present.
Member Elliot Santos?
Present.
Member Essa?
Present.
Member Evans? Member Fowler?
Present.
Member Gillies?
Present.
Member Gore?
Present.
Member Griffin Jones? Member Hassan?
Present.
Member Corey?
Present.
Member Murray Ramirez? I believe he phoned in. Member Murray Ramirez? Could we unmute Member Murray Ramirez, please?
Present.
There you are, okay. Member Nash?
Present.
Member Perez?
Present.
Member Ryman? Member Ruderman? It's our newest member, okay. Member Sanders? She phoned in.
Present.
Thank you. Member Stefan?
Present.
And Member Choi?
Present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes roll call. And we do have two non-agenda public comments. One's an e-comment and one is a speaker. Our speaker is David Myers. If we could unmute him, and he'll have 2 minutes to make his public comment.
Thank you, Chair Nash and board members. My name is Dave Myers. I'm a lifelong resident of San Diego County and a 35-year veteran of law enforcement, retiring as a sheriff's commander. Recently, we've read about in the San Diego Union Tribune published a 3-part series on racial profiling by San Diego Sheriff and San Diego Police. The stats were troubling. The ACLU, Project Zero, and San Diego State University also conducted separate and independent racial profiling studies of the sheriff and San Diego Police Department. Their conclusions were equally troubling and seemed to confirm the UT's 3-part series. The conclusions of all these series and studies fuel mistrust in our law enforcement community. The County Law Enforcement Review Board has publicly stated they have no authority to investigate. Our BIPOC communities have raised concerns about racial disparities in San Diego's criminal justice system. For all these reasons, I asked the Leon Williams San Diego County Human Relations Commission to conduct hearings, gather facts, hear from the community, hear from the experts, and call on law enforcement leaders to join you at the table in a conversation and help restore trust and accountability in our law enforcement. The Human Relations Commission can bring our communities together to tackle issues of racism, discrimination, and address social inequities that divide San Diego County. We have an obligation to at least investigate racial profiling, to understand if something is broken and fix it, no matter how difficult and uncomfortable it may be. It has been said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I believe that the Commission's work, if it lives up to its promise of true accountability, will help us get that much closer to justice. And thank you.
Thank you. The next is an e-comment submitted by Enrique Morones. Read as follows. It is very important to note the rise in hate in San Diego and how there are some hate groups present in the Human Relations Commission. There are some very extremist elements of the Nation of Islam, see recent Capitol Police DC murder, as well as white supremacy ties. The former member previously pointed by me. These should not be allowed as members, much less in leadership roles. Also note, once again, the makeup of the committee is not close to being ethnically or fairly balanced. Enrique Morones, former HR committee member, and member of San Diego's Anti-Hate Coalition, CC members of Anti-Hate Coalition that are also Human Relations Committee members, chair of the Anti-Hate Coalition, Supervisors Nora Vargas and Nathan Fletcher. That concludes non-agenda public comment, Member Chair.
Okay, now we can go to the discussion of community raised matters relating to the commission promoting positive human relations. So if we could start out our discussion with regards to our Mr. Dave Myers on the racial profiling. Anyone have any comments?
Yes, I do. This is Commissioner Ramirez. Sheriff Gore, obviously, you've been reading these articles. They've been coming out frequently concerning everything from suicides and of course, this latest one concerning the police and sheriff's department and stopping and profiling. What is your response to these ongoing articles?
Question.
Pardon?
I'm just unmuting. Sorry, Nicole.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a lot of information contained in the 3-part series by the UT that takes a lot of information from what they call the RIPA board, which was a law established in 2015 that requires the 8 largest law enforcement agencies in the state of California to start collecting their perceived racial data on stops and interactions they have with the public. Literally, there's volumes and volumes of information in that regard. Impossible, seriously, Nicole, to respond in this forum. Kind of goes to my next item down. I think it's on our agenda, number 8 on our agenda today, of maybe establishing a public safety subcommittee to look at articles like the UT published, look at racial profiling studies that have been done, and come back with a response to this commission. by the way, the San Diego Police Department and the San Diego County Sheriff's Department have both contracted with the Center for Police Equity to really look at all these statistics that have been gathered by sheriff's deputies and San Diego police officers, as two of the largest in the state of California, to try to make sense and so something positive comes out of all these, to develop some trends and to see if there are things that we need to change either through policies and procedures or training to make any implicit bias that we might have to address those issues, but just to try to respond in this forum to that lengthy articles that took, like I say, not only the data collected by us, but they did a lot of public records request acts that gathered use of force statistics and put those all in those reports. So I think it's definitely worth looking at. We've contracted with an outside company that works out of Yale University to try to give us some direction on how we can improve, what we need to do that will, I think, build confidence in the sheriff and the San Diego Police Department. So I think that's a more appropriate way to really evaluate that rather lengthy report.
Thank you.
Any other comments by the commissioners?
I don't see any
Any hands
hands
raised? or-
raised. I don't.
Okay, all right.
If you'd like,
I would like to certainly make a comment that the work of the Human Relations Commission is promoting positive human relations. And in regards to Mr. Dave Myers' comments, racial profiling has been an ongoing issue in San Diego for many years. And I agree with Mr. Meyer. Yes, the commission can put together town halls, particularly within the spirit of community policing. That's what this is really all about. That's the issue that's going on in the country. That's a big elephant in the room right now, is the whole notion of what does community policing really look like in San Diego. And so I do support the idea at some point that the Human Relations Commission will conduct hearings, town halls, as Commissioner Gore raised in regards to the contracting out that he's done with this consulting firm. It would be great if the community in some way can be connected to that work in order to improve community policing relationships and also what I call buy-in. So I think the alignment with the community, with the HRC, and with the law enforcement here in San Diego is very, very vital to the success of the work that the commission, Human Relations Commission, is doing now in the spirit of community policing.
Madam Chair, would you like us to move on to the next agenda item?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Were there any other public comments?
No, just those two that we had.
Okay. All right. Are we going to speak to the second one from Mr. Maronis?
It's a
Any comments from the commissioners on Mr. Maronis' comment?
Say this again.
Are there any commissioner comments in regards to Mr. Enrique Maronis' comment, public comment?
He did, this is Commissioner Estella. He did mention that he'd like to have a moment of silence for the Capitol policeman Billy Williams, that lies in the state capitol today.
Absolutely. In fact, I was going to raise that at the end of I meant to do it at the beginning, sorry, but at least at the end, a moment of silence for the Capitol Police Officer Billy Evans and also Dante riot in Minnesota, and also a moment of silence for the safety and protection of the peaceful protesters. So if we would, can we do that right now, Claudia? Is that something we could do right now? A moment of silence?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Could we just stop for a moment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next item is introducing our new commission members, and let me pull up the slides. We do have two more new members to introduce, and the first one is Tim Ryman, who I don't believe is present today. That was a carryover from the last meeting, and new member Simona Ruderman, but Denise, can you double check? I do not believe she's joined in.
I'm here. She's joined.
Oh, great. Thank you. Let me put this on full screen. This is our opportunity to introduce our newest member, Simona Ruderman, an appointment of D5. And Member Ruderman, if you could introduce yourself by your name and some information you would like to share with the commission, take up to 3 minutes, and here are some potential points if you'd like to address them.
Hi, I am Simona Ruderman. I am a current senior at the Academy of Our Lady of Peace. I have done some work with my mother, who's Paula Avila, working in the mayor's office and on some campaigning, but other than that, I am the youngest of 7 kids, so busy house, and I'm very excited to be here.
Welcome, Member Ruderman. I do have to share, my daughters are both graduates of Our Lady of Peace. So
Great. And I'm the oldest of 7. So we're in this together.
Thank you. And I don't believe we have Member Ryman present today, so we will hold that over. Oops. Madam Chair, our next item is actually item 6, which is a discussion item, and it is the selection of chair and vice chair. There are no slides to presentation. All the information regarding the individual members up for selection were distributed to the commission. The individuals indicating interest were Member Ellen Nash for chair, and for vice chair we had 2 individual members express their interest, and that was Member Warsan Arton and Member Nicole Murray Ramirez. Madam Chair, we do have the selection. This matter would require, by way of motion, Member Arton will not be joining us till 10:30.
Is it, can we wait? I would prefer that we wait for Commissioner Wasan to be here.
You can wait. We can trail this item after the next item, which is a presentation of the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board, if you'd like to hear that presentation first.
Let's do that first. And hopefully Commissioner would be on then.
Okay. Let me go ahead and get that item up on the screen, and then I can introduce our speaker on this item. Item 7 is the presentation based on the board's previous request that they hear from the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. Our speaker today is Dr. Kimberly Giardina, who has been in the field of child welfare for over 20 years and is the Child Welfare Director for the County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency. Dr. Giardina has a Doctor of Social Work from the University of Southern California and a Master of Social Work from San Diego State University. Dr. Giardina has consulted on child welfare issues at the national, state, and local levels. She helped to develop and implement the California Core Practice Model and Continuous Quality Improvement System. She led the implementation of multiple innovative initiatives in child welfare, including the Title VI e-waiver, or the Title IV e-waiver and San Diego's practice framework, Safety Enhanced Together. She has also participated on multiple agency-wide initiatives, including the Trauma-Informed Systems Integration Team and the Strong Families, Thriving Communities Coalition, that focused on reducing disproportionality and disparities for children and youth involved with the child welfare and juvenile justice systems. Dr. Giardina's Gallup strengths are achiever, focus, discipline, significance, and belief. Her passion is to improve policy and practice issues within the child welfare system so that it works best for the children and families it serves. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, the Director of Child Welfare Services, Dr. Kimberly Giardina. Let us know if you want us to flip through those slides, and we'll do so.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Good morning, Commission members. Thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. I am going to share a little bit about the work that we do with the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board and how that has helped to shape our work in child welfare services over the last couple of years. Claudia shared a little bit about my professional background, but I always like to share a little bit about who I am as a human being outside of work. I'm a San Diego native. I grew up in East County and live in the city of San Diego now. I'm the mother to a wonderful teenage son. He still likes me. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last, but I'll take it for now. I am of Latina and Caucasian descent. My mom immigrated here from Brazil. As Claudia mentioned, a couple of years ago, I finished my Doctor of Social Work degree. I always use the DSW logo because I also really like shoes too, so it worked out perfectly for me. As Claudia mentioned, this is really my passion. I've been in the field of child welfare for almost 21 years. I love this work, and I'm really happy to get to share a little bit about what we do today. So if you can go to the next slide, Child Welfare Services is committed to ensuring the safety of our children and strengthening our families so that they may lead a life that is healthy, safe, and thriving. Our primary charge is to respond to allegations of abuse and neglect and ensure that children are safe. But over the past 10 years, both nationally and here locally, there have been many movements in child welfare to really focus on how we can safely stabilize and preserve families, making sure that we're serving families and trying to keep them together as much as possible, trying to prevent the use of foster care by getting more prevention services in place. Over the last couple of years, Child Welfare Services has been undergoing some very significant systems reform in conjunction with our work from the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. If we go to the next slide. As a result of several lawsuits and media stories about children being neglected and abused while in foster care, in 2018, our San Diego Board of Supervisors created a working group to do a deep dive review across our child welfare system. That working group reviewed our policies, practices, procedures, and organizational structure, and really looked at how we can achieve three goals: improving the well-being and case outcomes for all children and families in foster care, enhancing the performance of our child welfare services professionals, and expanding trust and confidence in the community within the County of San Diego. The findings from this review showed that child welfare was doing a lot of things that were right. We had our policies that were thorough and detailed, we set high standards for best practice, and we were achieving some great outcomes. But it also showed that there were challenges that were getting in the way of us putting our policies into practice and of us fully achieving the outcomes for all children in care. So the working group identified 88 recommendations that were presented to the County of San Diego Board of Supervisors in December of 2018. And one of the primary recommendations was that we transform what at that time was known as the Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council into a stronger, more active community approach to child abuse prevention, and well as oversight of the implementation of these recommendations in child welfare services. At that time, the previous Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council was chaired by Child Welfare Services, and the working group felt it would be better for the community to be more involved and take the lead role in organizing this board. So out of that, the Board of Supervisors disbanded the previous Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council and created what is now known as the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. The Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board began meeting in June 2019. The board is co-chaired by Chair Fletcher and Vice Chair Vargas. So we have two members of the Board of Supervisors directly involved on the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. It has a 25-member Board of Supervisors commission on the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board, and we have 5 subcommittees that meet every month to also make sure that we're looking at the working group recommendations and how that implementation is going. And the mission is to encourage cross-sector collaboration and transparent monitoring of the San Diego County child welfare system to ensure safety and well-being of children and families. For the board, the positions on that board include the Health and Human Services Agency Director, Nick Mascione, myself, a member from Juvenile Probation, the presiding judge of our juvenile court, Judge Ana España, the executive director of our First Five Commission, a representative from our foster parents, a representative from our foster family agencies, a representative from our short-term residential therapeutic programs, or what used to be known as group homes, a representative from Voices for Children, who runs our court-appointed special advocate program, a representative from Children's Legal Services, which is the agency that provides the attorneys for children in juvenile court, Dependency Legal Counsel, which is also the agency that represents parents in juvenile court, a representative from a juvenile justice community-based organization, one of our child welfare social workers is a representative, and then total, we have 5 former foster youth who are currently serving on the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. Some of those have been appointed by the Board of Supervisors to sit in those board seats. We also do have seats specifically for people with lived experience. We have one for San Pasqual Academy and one for representing the Polinsky Children's Center. We also have a slot representing education, although that slot is vacant right now from the San Diego County Office of Education. The board is made up of 14 women and 7 men. About 57% of the advisory board members are white, and the remaining are people of color, with 19% African American and 24% Hispanic. If you go to the next slide. So our subcommittees work really hard to make sure that we're moving forward with implementing the recommendations that were made by the working group, as well as tackling other issues as they arise in our child welfare system. The Workforce Development, Organizational Structure, and Child and Family Services subcommittees were the first 3 that were created. And basically, those subcommittees took the working group recommendations and divided them into those categories and have continued to monitor the implementation and provide recommendations as we move forward in making changes in our child welfare system. Last year, we also added our Race and Equity Ad Hoc Committee, which serves sort of as an advisory to the other subcommittees, making sure that all of those subcommittees are looking at issues of race and equity throughout them. So are we having equity within our workforce? Does our workforce resemble the community that we serve? How are we making sure that child and family services really meet the needs of families? How do we make sure that we have service providers that are also matching our community and looking like the community we serve? And then most recently, we developed another subcommittee entirely of foster youth. This really came as the recent discussions were spurred by the California Department of Social Services notifying us that they'll be terminating the memorandum of understanding that allows us to operate San Pasqual Academy. And the voice of youth has been very important for us to make sure that we're really listening to what they need and want and how we can best serve our youth in our child welfare system. So that subcommittee just started meeting. And while right now they're primarily talking about San Pasqual Academy, they will be an ongoing subcommittee to further continue to give us that youth voice into how we should operate in the child welfare system. Next slide. In regards to those working group recommendations, we have been working really hard to get those implemented. We've completed 64 out of the 88 recommendations, and our goal is to complete the rest of them by the end of this calendar year. So 24 are remaining. And of those, we will have a certain amount that are sort of what we call ongoing. Things like the training of our staff, that'll never be something that's completed. So while we've started those things, those are all things that are going to be monitored on an ongoing basis. Just to highlight a few of the recommendations that have been completed, we have developed and hired what we call 6 chief of practice positions. There was a lot of focus in the working group about how we make consistency of our practice. We were previously under a different structure under the Health and Human Services Agency where we were regionalized, and there were differences sort of in how the regional offices worked. And we wanted to really make sure we were creating consistency. So our chiefs of practice are really charged with making sure that we're applying our policies and procedures the same way, regardless of what office people work out of. We also developed what we call our workforce training and development units. Those began in March of 2020. So our workers go through about 10 weeks of training when they're first hired. And what used to happen is after those 10 weeks of training, they would just get assigned to an office and they would begin their work. Now they actually go from that 10 weeks of training into a training unit, and they spend 16 weeks in that training unit where they get a very slow graduated caseload. They're assigned a mentor. They have a supervisor and a senior worker all there to provide them support so that we can really make sure that staff have an opportunity to learn the job, that they're supported, and also that there's consistency in the way that they're assigned cases. We don't want one worker to be assigned 20 cases on day one and another one only gets 2. We want it to make sure that it's consistent and fair for our staff. We also created what we call our review, assess, and direct teams, which is a secondary review of referrals that come into the Child Abuse Hotline. And along with that, have worked with 211 San Diego on the 211 Connect program. So we get a lot of calls to the Child Abuse Hotline that do not require a child welfare investigation or don't meet the threshold for a child welfare investigation. But oftentimes those families still have needs. And so we now refer those families to 211 San Diego, who can then do specific outreach to try to engage those families in any kind of prevention services to help meet the needs of those families. We've also done a lot of work at trying to become more transparent in child welfare. We now have our policies online on our public-facing website, so anyone can go on there and look up what our policies are about a particular area. We've increased our use of data. We have a new data book as well as monthly dashboards that we post on there so people can see how we're doing in achieving our outcomes in child welfare. And we try to make sure that all of those are broken down by race, ethnicity, age, gender, so that we can see different populations that we're serving in the child welfare system. Next slide. So child welfare has also continued to make efforts around our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and specifically last year after the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the movements that began to take extra stronghold in our country, I began to have a series of listening sessions with our staff on issues of race and equity. And we talked both about issues of race and equity and how we serve children and families, and then also within our own workforce. And so we use that to revise and strengthen our diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan within child welfare, and really making sure that we're focusing on how we reduce the disproportionality and disparities that we see specifically for Black children and Native American children in the child welfare system. We have had some progress over the last 10 years. While we've had an overall decrease in the number of kids in foster care by 47%, there's actually been a 52% reduction of Native American youth and a 62% of African American youth in the foster care system. But those rates still remain disproportionate to the population in San Diego. So we definitely still have ways to go in terms of improving our work around our equity with families. Some of the things we've been working on is enhancing our training for our staff. So all of our new staff now take the Harvard implicit bias test, and we have coaches that work with them to understand the results and how that might impact their work and influence their decision making. We have a strength-based leadership development series for our senior workers and our supervisors, specifically focused on how they address diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. We've developed hiring, recruitment, and retention strategies and continue to work with human resources to expand our recruitment of staff so we have a diverse workforce. We have completed 4 years of what we call our Cultural Responsiveness Academy. The first 2 years focused on African American families. The 2 years after that focused on Native American families. And currently we're focusing on working with fathers. We have procured a new contract called our Family Support Liaison contract. Jewish Family Services has just begun to do that work with African American families and immigrant and refugee families, helping to support families in our community. And we've been doing a lot of work around updating our policies and procedures to ensure we're having a different lens when we look at how we implement those policies and procedures. And then our epidemiologist also conducts a quarterly analysis of our diversity of our staff in comparison to the population we serve. And we've actually included those demographics in our data dashboard that's on our website so that people can see how we're making improvements with the diversity of our workforce. So I think those were the primary elements I wanted to share with you today. I am happy to take any questions you might have, and also share my contact information here if you want to follow up on the side. Also, always happy to chat.
Thank you so much, Dr. Giardino. We do have a hand raised by member Elliot Santos.
Good morning. I know you mentioned Native Americans in your presentation, but I guess I was wondering about representation by a Native American on your committee. We are under the Indian Child Welfare Act, and there are certain things that need to be adhered to, and we have a lot of issues when the individual tribes work with the county. 7 of the tribes here in San Diego are part of Southern Indian Health Council, and that Health Council manages the Indian child welfare portion. I'm from Manzanita, and we operate our own Indian child welfare program, but we have a lot of trouble working with the agencies. They don't recognize it, or there's a lot of turnover in the Indian unit. So I guess I just want to see how we can be included, especially since we have such a high rate. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. And so I do not know specifically the race and ethnicity of each member of the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. To my knowledge, I don't know that any of them are Native American, but I don't know that for sure. But like you said, we do have our Indian Specialty Unit, and certainly all of our advisory board meetings are open to the public, including all of the subcommittee meetings. We typically have pretty robust participation. There is a website for the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board where we always include the links and the information about the upcoming meetings. So would certainly love to have participation from our tribal partners.
I think that's great, but I think being that San Diego County has more tribes than any other county in the United States, there are 19 tribes within the county. It would be great to see a dedicated seat for a tribal representative on that group.
Yeah, and I can certainly take that back to the advisory board.
Thank you.
We have member Corey's hand up.
Yes, this is Commissioner Corey. Thank you very much, Kimberly, for the presentation. I have a question regarding any representation that exists for Arab Americans in general, especially in the county, especially for those that are underprivileged refugees in East County, where there are lots of issues that your group can really help and cover. And so, are they represented within any of your programs or committees?
So again, like I said, I don't know specifically the race and ethnicity of every one of our advisory board members. That was not part of how they were appointed. We do have specific programs in child welfare to work with our Middle Eastern population, especially in our East County office. And as I mentioned, our new family support liaison contract is specifically going to be working with immigrant and refugee populations in San Diego.
Thank you.
Chair Nash, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. I'm actually a former foster parent. In fact, my entire family, we were our former foster parents. And some of the concerns I have, Kimberly, with regard to your presentation have to do with outcomes. I like to use the term the eradication of poverty. And what concerns me is that the system, I want to see, or would like to see the system more designed around outcomes and accomplishments and results. For instance, I would like to see how, children, our foster children, are performing academically. I would like to see when they transition out of foster care, where they end up. So I would like to see more of a report that comes out periodically that really shows how child welfare services is moving the needle for foster kids. These kids do not come in, they don't ask to come in this world, and they end up in the system, and it's our responsibility as taxpayers, as well as individuals that are working with regard to the reduction of poverty, that we ensure that these kids are successful as much as possible. So in your presentations going forward, if you could also talk about outcomes. How many are going to college? How many are just doing well in whatever aspect of life that they're in? If they move from kindergarten up through 12th grade, what are their reading scores? How are we moving the needle? How are we making sure that foster parents are held accountable to ensure that these kids come out successful as much as possible? What is the budget of child welfare services that goes into successful outcomes for kids, for foster kids, for foster families? And then also with an emphasis on reunification. How many kids are reunified? And what does that look like in terms of ethnic breakdown, by race and gender and the whole 9 yards. So, I mean, your presentation was wonderful, but I think we really need to get down to, if you talk about equity, we need to get down to where are these kids that end up in the system, in child welfare services? What is our responsibility to ensure that when they leave child welfare services and transition into our San Diego, that they transition well, they transition where they become productive citizens in San Diego, as well as across this country? How many go to college? So some sort of a tracking, I hate to use the word tracking, but some sort of a system that's designed that really reflects outcomes in the reduction of foster care / poverty in San Diego. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm happy to share. We do have a lot of that information available on our website, so I'm happy to share that with Claudia that she can get to all of you as well. I'll also share the most recent, what's called the Cal Youth Study. So ever since California implemented what's called AB 12, which allows children to stay in foster care until the age of 21 rather than 18, the state has also been tracking long-term outcomes for kids and breaks that down by each county. So we actually can see the improvements that we're making once they exit the foster care system. So I'm happy to share the most recent results from that as well.
I have one other question. What is the status on the San Pasqual Academy? What is it? Is it going to close, or I see folks advocating for it to continue. So I'm not clear on what the status is.
So we had received a notification from the California Department of Social Services that they were terminating the MOU that allows us to operate San Pasqual Academy as of October 1st of this year. On March 16th, our Board of Supervisors authorized a request for an extension to allow us to operate San Pasqual Academy through June 30th of 2022. So we have submitted that request to the California Department of Social Services. At this time, they have not provided us with a response as to whether or not we're going to be granted the extension. So we are waiting for the state to respond as well. We also are looking at other options for San Pasqual Academy. The challenge with it is that it no longer fits within state and federal licensing guidelines. And so we're looking at ways that we could potentially make some modifications that would allow it to continue to operate, but fit within the current state and federal policies around licensing for facilities for foster care.
Okay. Where would the kids end up if it's closed?
We'll be looking for foster homes and relatives for them.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Giardino. Really appreciate your time. And when you send me that information, I'm happy to distribute to the commission.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
All right.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair Arton has joined the meeting. She arrived at about 10:20. So we do have the agenda item number 6, which is the selection of chair and vice chair. And we did have speakers on that item, a speaker on that item. Public
Okay.
speaker, excuse me.
Thank you.
Would you like to hear from the public speaker first?
Absolutely.
Our public speaker is David Myers. If we could unmute him and he could have 2 minutes to speak to the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members for your time. I would just strongly encourage a continuation under the leadership of Ellen Nash as chair and Warsan Arton as vice chair. They both bring a very different perspective, and they both are true leaders in the community, respected, and bring an open perspective to wanting to solve systemic issues around racism and human relations that we've seen in our community. So I would strongly, strongly encourage everyone to please support both Ellen Nash for chair and Warsan Arton for vice chair. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes public speakers on that item. So agenda item number 6 is the selections for chair and vice chair. And the commission's adopted bylaws included a process for that selection of officers, which this commission has adhered to. You've been distributed and was also made available to the public were the applications of all those who have expressed interest. We have for chair Ellen Nash and for vice chair Warsan Arton and Nicole Murray Ramirez. Today, the commission will select its chair and vice chair, and they can make the selection by voting for each office separately, or they can make a motion to select for the office of chair and or vice chair in one motion. Whatever motions are made, they will require votes, and to carry the vote will require a majority of those appointed, which would require 13 members to vote aye or yay on any made motion. So it's up to the commission's pleasure as to whether or not they'd like to take the offices separately or jointly by way of motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we do it in one vote.
You can certainly
This
do
is
that.
Commissioner Khoury. I second it.
Are you making, you don't need to make, it's however you make the motion. You can make the motion whichever way. You don't need a separate motion voted on how to make the motion. Somebody can make a motion for the selection of officers in whichever format they prefer, but you can certainly do it as one motion.
Okay.
So if somebody could.
I'd like to make the motion then to proceed with Ellen Nash as chair and I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce her name, Warsan Arton as vice chair.
I second.
So the motion maker was Member Perez and Member Hodges second. Are there any other motions that the commission would like to make at this time? Or we could just take the roll call on the motion.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Claudia, if either you vote for both those or it's a package deal. If you wanted to vote for Nicole Murray Ramirez, for example, I would vote no on Ellen Nash. Is that?
So
this seems.
The other option would be to have another motion for Ellen and Nicole, and then we could do the roll call and the members could select the motion that they're voting aye on and they're voting no on.
I'd like to make that motion. At least then we have an opportunity to vote on the other candidate.
Okay. So your motion is for
Ellen and Nicole Murray Ramirez.
Ellen Nash for chair and Nicole Murray Ramirez for vice chair.
Correct.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. I don't know if this is allowed in the rules. Is it possible to have Chair Ellen Nash and to have the co-chairs be co-chairs? Is that a possible motion where, because this is such a big commission with so much work, if there's the ability to bring the youth and the power of what Ms. Wharton brings to this, along with being an original civil rights leader that Nicole Murray is, and his basically being the impetus behind getting this Human Relations Commission to kind of show respect to the tradition and to bring the youth voice, which is so important. I don't know if our bylaws allow for that, but I certainly appreciate anyone who wants to step up to this very difficult role in leadership. And so if I'm able to have a ability to have a chair and then the vice chairs be two people, then I would support that if that's allowed for.
If that's allowed, I would certainly support that position.
So the bylaws are actually silent. It just says select a chair and a vice chair. So it's silent on the co-chair. I've just checked in with our Chief Deputy County Counsel to confirm whether or not the silence is indicative of one way or fine. And she is saying it is fine to do that. So you could have co-vice chairs.
We can revise the motion then if the commission would prefer, because I definitely agree with that as well. I do agree with bringing the youth thought, but then there's also so much to be said for experience and people just wanting to step up to lead.
I second the motion.
So if you need me to revise the motion, so we can just make one motion that we are accepting or we are nominating Ellen as the chair and Warsan and Nicole as vice chairs. I'm certainly.
You can make that revision to your motion, and Member Hodges as the second. Are you in agreement with that revision?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I say. Mm-hmm.
So the motion that now is on the floor is for Ellen Nash as chair, and Warsan Arton and Nicole Murray Ramirez, both as vice chairs. And that we did have a hand raise. Member Sanders, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Point of clarification. It appears to me we're perhaps putting in more work and effort than need be. If we have one person for chair, why can't we just elect that person by acclamation? There's no opposition. And then let's get into the potentials of a vice chair, co-chair and vice chairs. I don't know why. That's just my thoughts. We're working perhaps a little harder. Our chair has no opposition. So is there a reason we can't just lock that in by acclamation and then move into these other suggestions?
I believe the bylaws, I don't have them opened right to the section, the bylaws do require a selection of the chair. So while I agree there is one person named for chair, because the bylaws do require that be on that motion, and if or you can call for the vote. I don't see any additional hands raised. Commissioner Corey, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I am suggesting we go ahead with the vote because I don't see any other competition on table.
Okay. I see no other hands or questions, so we can call the vote if you would like, if you're ready, Madam Chair.
Yes.
On the motion for Ellen Nash as chair and Warsan Arton and Nicole Marie Ramirez as vice chairs, please express your vote when your name is called. Member Arton.
Aye.
Member Chavez Peterson. Kate Clark. Estela de los Rios.
Yes.
Angela Elliott Santos.
Aye.
Rashid Essa.
Aye.
Eleanor Evans. Rodney Fowler.
Aye.
Tammy Gillies.
Aye.
Member Gore, Bill Gore.
Great solution. Aye.
Taha Hassan.
Yes.
Dennis Hodges.
Absolutely.
George Corey.
Yes.
Nicole Murray Ramirez. If we could unmute him, I believe he phoned in. Nicole Murray Ramirez. We'll come back to him. Ellen Nash.
Aye.
Thank you. Ellen Nash.
I'm going to abstain.
Elena Perez.
Aye.
Simona Ruderman.
Aye.
Gwen Sanders. Gwen Sanders.
Abstain.
Summer Steffen.
Aye.
And Samuel Choi. Samuel Choi? Did we lose him? Did he drop? Okay. That concludes the vote, and it carries with an affirmative vote in 16 yeses, 2 abstentions, no nos. And Member Corey, you have your hand raised?
Yes, as a final comment, I can wait. It's not related to this subject.
Oh, okay.
But
Congratulations to Chair Ellen Nash, Vice Chair
Thank
Warsan
you.
Arton, and Vice
Thank
Chair
you.
Nicole Murray Ramirez. Staff looks forward to working with all of you as we move forward with the Commission's business.
Great. Thank you. I'm honored to serve as chair, and hey, let's get to work.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I really appreciate this. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut anyone off, but I really appreciate you all for your vote and for your input. And yeah, I really enjoyed the work that we do in this commission. So I'm looking forward to working with the fabulous folks that I will be working with. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Ramirez. I appreciate the vote. And I do have to bring up an issue that is very important to some of us on this commission. First of all, I'd like to recognize that Ramadan is being celebrated in our Muslim community. And I think it's very important for this commission to note this very important celebration. While that being said, while many of us, I think all of us, have felt that our chair has done an absolutely good job these last few months, I say this with all due respects, that many of us have some major serious concerns about what our chair stated at the end of a recorded meeting when it concerns her views on Mosque 8 in the 4th District. The Nation of Islam Mosque, a mosque under Louis Farrakhan and the Black Muslims, which the Southern Poverty Law Center has for decades described as a hate group. Our chair, as you will relate, actually stated that she would like us to help her change that status because, and I quote, they have changed, and do community outreach. I immediately informed our chair at this meeting that she was absolutely wrong, that from the beginning, the Nation of Islam has been anti-white, referring the Caucasian race as white devils, They continue to be especially anti-Jewish and constantly take anti-Semitic stance. They are anti-LGBTQ and feel we are destroying the fabric of America along with the Jewish people. When I confronted the chair that indeed the Nation of Islam had not changed, she stated she would call and have a conversation with Tammy of the ADLU. Sadly, this conversation did not happen. And in fact, neither did I receive a call, as upset as I was. So once again, this issue has not been resolved or clarified for many of us. I now most respectfully ask the chair for the following questions. 1, do you support the rhetoric and philosophy of Mosque 8 and the propaganda they are distributing when it concerns the Jewish, white, Caucasian race, and the LGBT community? 2, do you support and agree with Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam's an extreme hate group that constantly viciously attack the Jewish community, the Caucasian community, and the LGBT community? Ladies and gentlemen, to say that some of our Jewish, white, Caucasian, and LGBTQ members of this commission were and have been hurt, upset, and very concerned is to put it mildly.
Madam Chair, this is not a matter of discussion on the agenda, and they weren't agendized as to this discussion of the prior, regarding the prior meeting comments. So this can be referred
and I'll
to
do
the meeting.
And I'll do respect, Sylvia. I asked, as every commission member will remember, at our last meeting when we were discussing elections, I said, could the candidates be questions and ask questions? You replied in the affirmative. This is such a question.
Related to the selection has now been made. There was an ability to present information.
And that, but select, that was not presented to us. Do you not feel that this is? Do you not feel that this is an important issue that has not been resolved? Are you not concerned that many of us on this commission are very concerned about this? That we have this not been resolved? We have not had this discussion. She had stated that she would call Tammy. I believed I was going to get a call to discuss this.
Member Murray Ramirez, or Vice Chair Murray Ramirez, the issue is that it's not on the agenda. And so it is this type of this discussion on this matter, which is not agendized, needs an itemized, has to be placed on agenda for discussion so that it complies with the requirements under the Brown Act. So we can put this on a future agenda for discussion, as it would be appropriate to discuss it within the commission's purview related to human relations. But it does need to be separately agendized as a separate discussion item.
Can I make a comment?
If we could keep it very limited, this is, we do need to move on to the next agenda item, just because it's not on. It's not on the agenda, so to have that discussion.
All right.
We could bring it back at the next agenda.
Sure, let's bring it back at the next agenda or next meeting and add it to the agenda. Everything has to be done decently and in order.
This is Commissioner Khoury. I would like to expand this item from the next agenda to also include some bias of anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian that exists as among some of the members of this committee and Commission 2. So let's have it as a general discussion.
Agree.
Our next agenda item, Madam Chair, is agenda item number 8, which is a request for the formation of a public safety subcommittee. This item follows the Sheriff's Department's presentation on February 23rd. Commission member Sheriff Gore provided information in response to questions asked during the presentation and expressed interest in having further dialogue regarding law enforcement. He had submitted a letter that was distributed to the Commission and made available to the public. At the March 23rd meeting, Member Gore suggested a subcommittee be formed, and this item was placed on today's agenda for Commission discussion. With that, I would turn it over to Member Gore if he had any further anything further he wanted to add in regards to this request, and then open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I think the previous letter we sent around and then my comments are kind of self-explanatory. It just became apparent to me that a lot of the issues that this commission is going to deal with revolve around public safety. I just think I will obviously bow the wishes of the group, but it would be productive to have a public safety subcommittee as issues are raised during our meetings or public comment or within the commission, to have a subcommittee that further develops these issues. Maybe would meet with some of the law enforcement entities, whether it be the DA's office, San Diego Police Department, Sheriff's Department, and more formalized presentation to come back to the entire commission. It's not any way of sidestepping the commission in any way, but it would, I think, make for more meaningful presentations when they come into the commission. If there's been some groundwork done by a subcommittee, that's just my thought. But again, I will bow to the wishes of the group.
And Madam Chair, there is, I apologize, there are public speakers on this item.
Oh, okay.
I apologize. The first is, there's two speakers, David Myers and Jean Carpenter. The first, David Myers. You'll have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you, commissioners. Again, David Myers. And so in my experience in government, when you want to kill a subject, you go to subcommittees. I strongly believe that this commission's duties and responsibilities should be done in the public view. Yes, it may be a little messy, and yes, it may take a little more time, but I think all the information all at once has to be heard, especially when you're dealing with issues of discrimination, bias. And as Sheriff Gore pointed out, a lot of the topics are going to be around law enforcement. Now, if these subcommittee meetings that the sheriff describes that were going to take place, or he suggests would take place, would be conducted in public purview with notice, then I would say that would be good. But I suspect that that is not the case. And the purpose, I think, would not serve the commission well to conduct the commission's business behind a curtain when the public is asking for transparency and accountability. Conduct the meetings, conduct the information gathering in full public view so that all commissioners can hear the same information and form their own questions and opinions. Thank you.
The other public comment was from Jean Carpenter, and it's unclear if it looks like it may have just been meant as an e-comment. The comment is, hold Sheriff Gore accountable for his incompetence and don't bury what has happened in an effective subcommittee. That concludes the public comment on agenda item 8. And Madam Chair, subcommittees and commission members, under the bylaws, the subcommittees are required to be open to the public. They are noticed, the agendas are posted, and the information is available on the webpage, just as the commission's agendas and materials are.
Okay, great.
For that clarification for the commission's knowledge.
Thanks for clarification. Any comments by the commissioners?
Claudia, I do have a quick logistical question.
Yes.
I do think, even though we all are community members, I do think every chance that we get to include more community members, especially those who are impacted by the specific issues we are discussing, the better. So can you remind us if there's any, is it allowed for community members to participate in subcommittees?
Yes. Yes, Vice Chair Arton, the subcommittee can have other members serve on the commission. It just has to have at least, I believe, 3 commission members.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that would be something to raise and include.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair, you can entertain any motions. Also, the chair can establish committees. I'm pulling up to double check the subcommittee's question. Any committee shall, I did want to clarify my comment to Vice Chair Arton.
Yeah.
Except upon approval by the commission, any committee appointed shall consist of not fewer than 3 members and no more than 7 members, including at least 1 commission member. So other members can be members of the public that are not on the commission. So I just wanted to make that clear. So on general, it's 3 to 7 and must include at least 1 commission member. All committees, all meetings of committee shall be open to the public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend. Standing committees, such as this requested subcommittee, are subject to all the noticing requirements. And there are hands raised. Let's see, I can find them.
Let's see, I see Tammy.
Member Gillies and Member Corey.
Thank you. I just had a question for Sheriff Gore, and I'm wondering, he mentioned earlier that he was working with the Center for Police Equity, and I'm wondering about his vision on how that might fit in with this subcommittee transparency, and would this subcommittee have any understanding of what's happening at that end? So.
Well, the Center for Police Equity is going to make a very public report. It's not going to be a private report just to the sheriff. It'll be made public, so there'll be complete transparency there. It's the type of report I think that a subcommittee could go through and dig down. I expect it to be extensive, and I would think a subcommittee, instead of having the whole commission look at it, subcommittee could drill down into some of the facts and figures, see what's relevant, would be relevant to this board. Again, I just think it's a way to save valuable time of this commission by letting some of the preliminary work be done by a subcommittee in full public view. We're not trying to hide anything.
Member Corey?
My question basically is how open is Sheriff Gore to any recommendations that may come out from such a committee or a subcommittee? And if a subcommittee is formed, I would like to be a member of that subcommittee.
My understanding, the subcommittee would just make recommendations back to the Human Relations Commission. They would not be making recommendations on the side. And any recommendations that come from the Human Relations Commission, I will give full consideration to, like I would from other community groups that we meet with on a regular basis.
We have a hand raised by Member Hodges, and Member Evans is also present now at this point. At this time.
Yes, I agree with Sheriff Gore that we should do a subcommittee. I'm a member of the Citizens Advisory Review Board for Police and Community Relations, and we have a racial profiling subcommittee, and some other subcommittees as well. And we bring everything back to the public. So it's not going to be nothing hidden. Everything's going to be transparent. It's just something to get some things done and to put some things in an expeditious manner. So I'm in agreement with that, and I would be willing to be part of that committee if one is formed.
I don't see any other hands raised, Madam Chair. I think there's
Great.
been some questions about, once again, whether members of the public can serve on the committee. The committee can be comprised from other members within the community. It's up to the commission and or the chair, as the chair and the commission both have, or the commission may appoint committees to carry out the functions of the subcommittee. And it looks like there's some new hands raised. Member Vice Chair Arton.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the idea for the subcommittees and the public being part of that subcommittee. I do think that if we want committee members to be part of the subcommittee, there needs to be intentional outreach to community members, especially again communities that are impacted the most. So I do want to raise the idea of like doing outreach before we form this committee or subcommittee, excuse me, and being intentional about it and just putting that work up front before we put the subcommittee together.
Any other comments? Any other?
Member Corey's hand is up.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Corey. I really don't like the idea of keeping, keep postponing until such time, we reach out, etc. I think that we need to go ahead and set up at least a core team from the commission, and then we can always add to it from the public if there are anybody from the public interested to join. But this is a very important matter that should not be kept on, delayed. That's my point of view.
The commission could decide to form the subcommittee, and the first order of business for the subcommittee would be who else should be recommended to be part of it. You can create the subcommittee and have them return to this commission with those with the recommendations on who else should also be involved or suggested to be seated on that subcommittee, as well as its scope of review and what that subcommittee's focus will be.
Okay. Any other comments before I make my comments? First of all, I thank Sheriff Gore for this recommendation. I have one question first. So you said you meet with different groups. Who are those different groups and what's the subject? Is it consistent with what we intend to create here, or I'm just curious what groups you meet with?
I'd be happy to supply a whole list of all the community groups we meet with throughout San Diego County, North County, South County. I thought we'd already provided that to the commission, but I can get a copy of that to the commission. It's group Pastors on Point. We meet with the NAACP, another group that was held public forums, Standing in the Gap. We just held our first Spanish-speaking Citizens Academy. You name it. We're meeting with groups all over the county.
So do you
I'll provide a list of that to the commission.
Okay. Do you have other advisory groups? That's my point. Meeting with groups is one thing, but you have groups that you serve as advisory groups to you?
There's we're a little bit different. San Diego Police Department. We have stations all over the county, as you can imagine, from Imperial Beach to Vista and out to rural and the desert. What we do is treat our captains that run a station where we contract police for with incorporated cities. We treat them as the chief of police, and each captain is responsible to have community advisory committees, realizing that an advisory committee in Encinitas will look probably a lot different than an advisory committee in Rancho San Diego or Imperial Beach or in Borrego. So I have one advisory committee that I meet with, Pastors on Point. I have an LGBTQ advisory committee that I meet with on a regular basis. But a lot of the groups that they meet with individual captains in our individual stations around the county.
Okay. So So well, how would this group, this advisory group, if we proceed, how would you distinguish this group from the other advisory groups?
I wouldn't look at a subcommittee of the HRC as an advisory group. I would look at that as a group that would take in issues such as racial profiling that has come up, how we police in civil unrest matters, and prepare and talk with groups, put together presentations, do a lot of the groundwork to come back to the full commission with reports and hopefully facilitate meaningful dialogue. I don't see that as an advisory group.
I see. Okay. All right. So there would be some substance, there would be some authority that would distinguish this advisory group from your community groups, or this subcommittee group from your advisory group. Yeah.
I would think this commission would want, it's not just the sheriff's department, you know, there's a lot of other law enforcement, public safety entities in San Diego County that I think this commission would probably be interested in. And hopefully a subcommittee could be, as complaints or issues come up, this committee could do a lot of the groundwork, sift through a lot of the information to have more meaningful presentations that come back to the whole commission. It's not to say that, as we've talked about already, the subcommittee's meetings would not be in secret. They'd be transparent also.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I bring this up, I'm just going to be transparent. We see a lot of challenges. We're living in a time as we sit here in this moment where law enforcement is under attack and vice versa. So my concern is about outcomes and how we get to community interactions with law enforcement that promotes positive human relations. And with that said, I'm about outcomes. I see so much attack, Sheriff Gore. I see your name called out on Facebook all the time. And it's not about positive human relations. So I would like to see us get to what our vision is for this commission, to a point where we are in I don't call it community policing relationship, or something where we have much more positive community relations going on in San Diego. I would like our law enforcement department to be the model for the rest of the country because of where we sit. And so the subcommittee that we're creating, I think it should include commissioners particularly, but also community members, as Commissioner Artong said, that it's very intentional about results. And I disagree with Dave Myers, who I know very well. I'm gonna be honest with you, I know him very well. We're not about killing anything. We're not gonna kill anything. And I think if we put the right people, particularly the ones that are always complaining about you and your leadership, they should be a part of the solution. And this to me is the solution, to create this subcommittee that would bring recommendations to the HRC with changes on how we're going to resolve the negative aspects of community relations in San Diego, and then become the model that we can become. That's what I would support, creating a subcommittee if that is the intent. Meeting to meeting just to meet. We have too much on our plate right now, and we got too much going on in this country, in this city, where we need to get some solutions done. And so I definitely support creating the subcommittee, but it has to be with the intentions of coming back to us with some solutions that Sheriff Gore, since you have the final decision, that you would support, and ensuring that citizens are safe, but also that we can come together and get some stuff, get some things done for our community, for our Black boys, for brown boys for our people in this city. There are nights when my sons are out and I don't sleep at night till they come home. Till they come home. It almost brings me to tears.
Chair Nash, can I make a comment?
Thank you. Sure, who has a comment?
This is Commissioner Rodney Fowler.
Member Fowler, there you go.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
To all the commissioners on it, if you look at my profile picture up there, I don't think I've talked about this before, but the gentleman standing next to me is my youngest son of 3 grown kids. And that's from last week at my retirement at my office at the local 127 office from my retirement from the city of San Diego after 33 years. So that's my son and his partner in uniform. And then the other gentleman standing right next to me is the mayor's police escort that follows him everywhere he goes. So I want to be transparent in the fact that from a family that has grown up in the Mount Hope community, we have 3 grown children. Austin, who is standing there next to me in uniform, is my youngest son. I have another son, Rodney Jr., and a daughter that's the oldest, and we have 6 grandchildren. So just like every family in the country that is of color that has concerns about what's going around the nation and police interaction, those officers that are problem officers need to be dealt with. They need to be properly supervised. They need to be properly trained and dealt with when they violate policy. Certainly, I do not prescribe to that all police officers are bad. Many communities of colors need police officers in their communities. And that is one of the things that my son talks to me about on what he spends his time in his shift work. So anything positive that can go to make our communities better, please, I have the sound turned down on CNN watching all the events around the nation right now. So it is a reality. Anyone that says it's not is fooling themselves. And sooner or later, every community winds up dealing with those issues that face the nation. I just want to make sure that, like Commissioner Nash, the Chair Nash said, that whatever time we spend talking about various issues, that we're not just spinning our wheels, that we're coming to discussion and possible avenues to resolve the issues that we deal with. One of the biggest issues that we need to deal around the country is that the more that the departments are reflective of the community that they represent, the better off that we all are. And I will say that I still, as a man that just turned 60 years old on Easter Sunday, I still worry about going in and out of my house. I worry about our grown children and our grandchildren. And I'm sure there's people on the meeting today that have that same concern. I'm hoping one day before I leave this planet that I won't have that concern, that when I leave, there's members on the call today on the meeting that when they leave their house, they expect to come back home. And I expect to come back home, but I also want to make sure that my son, his partner, are able to come back home after their shifts and safe, and that the community members that they deal with while they're on patrol are able to come home safe after they have contact with law enforcement. That's
Hello? I'm at work.
Uh-oh.
Member De Los Rios, did you want to mute? Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that said, do we need to take the vote on creation of the subcommittee?
So, Madam Chair, as the chair, you can create the subcommittee or the commission can. If the there was discussion about adding community representation or community involvement, that would and the way the bylaws work is you can establish the committee, and then any appointment shall be no less than 3, no more than 7. If they want to exceed that number, then it does need to be the entire commission that votes on that. So what you may want to consider is have seek out volunteers from the commission who wants to be seated, and their first order of business determine what other community involvement would be appropriate. Return to the commission to see if it exceeds the allowable number to take that vote, and also to establish its span or its scope of what it will be discussing and present that to commission for purposes of establishing what the whole role of that subcommittee is. You've provided quite a bit of information and to have it set out as a subcommittee, some duties or some scope so that everyone is on the same page as to that could work, and you could return back to the commission.
Okay. Okay. Well,
And
I see.
There's lots of folks who are volunteering, but it would we do
I
need
see
to get
in the chat
this.
lots of folks volunteering. So I
So
don't think we're going to have to worry about volunteers.
no, but we do need to make sure that we have our substantive conversations out in the open so folks can raise their hand if they want to volunteer, if that's what you'd like to do. If there's a preference for a vote, you can do that also. It is up to you and the commission. I see hands raising, so up to you, Chair.
Can we just hand raise and take the names?
Okay,
The names.
if you're raising your hand, I will take, you would like me to note those as people who are volunteering. I see Tammy Gillies. I'm writing these down as we speak also, so give me some moment. George Corey, Dennis Hodges, Cinnamon Clark, Estela de los Rios.
Awesome.
Angela Elliott Santos. Okay. Rodney Fowler. Let's see. Was there Eleanor Evans' hand up? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have.
Did you get Rodney Fowler? I thought I saw his hand. Did you get
I got Rodney Fowler and obviously Member Gore.
Okay, Member Gore, yes.
So we now have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 folks who volunteered. I want to make sure we've captured everybody, and that would require a vote of the commission to exceed the 3 to 7 range.
Okay.
So if we can get a motion to establish the subcommittee, to exceed, and the part of the motion to exceed the 7 to have the 9 members and have this subcommittee return back to the commission with any additional recommendations for additional seats that are community involved and the scope.
Motion.
May I, this is Commissioner Corey, can we go ahead with a motion to accept 9 members of this committee?
It's a motion to create a committee with 9 members and appointing the 9 names that I just read. Is that what your motion is, Member Corey?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I second.
Who was the second? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Pastor Hodges.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's call that vote. Unless there's any other comment.
Claudia, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
I honestly don't have the capacity to be on this subcommittee, but I am wondering, for example, if I do know community members who might be beneficial to be on this subcommittee, can the rest of the commission send like references to the subcommittee?
If you want to send them to me, and then I'll present them at their first meeting so that it's compliant with the Brown Act, so there's not a lot of conversations amongst all the members. We can, yeah, feel free to do that if people have groups or individuals that they want to send.
Got it. Thank you so much.
I see Eleanor Evans' hand up. Your hand raised, Eleanor.
I'm sorry, I'm using the phone, and this is the first time I've ever used the phone on the Zoom. So no, I'm voting yes if there's a vote taken in regards to the motion. But you know, this is my first experience, so forgive me.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call for the vote.
Okay, I was on mute, so sorry about that. Member Evans, I'm going to call for the vote, but you had your hand raised and I noted your name as part of the subcommittee. Was that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Calling for the vote. Member Arton?
Aye.
Kate Clark?
Aye.
Cinnamon Clark?
Member Clark, aye.
Estela Dos Rios,
Aye.
Angela Elliott Santos,
Aye.
Rashid Essa,
Aye.
Eleanor Evans,
Yeah, aye.
Rodney Fowler,
Aye.
Tammy Gillies,
Aye.
Bill Gore,
Aye.
Taha Hassan,
Yes.
Dennis Hodges,
Aye.
George Corey,
Yes.
Nicole Murray Ramirez,
Aye.
Ellen Nash,
Aye.
Elena Perez,
Aye.
Simona Ruderman,
Aye.
Gwen Sanders. I know she had to leave early. She may not be on the call. Summer Stephan,
Aye.
Samuel Choi.
Aye.
That motion carries, voting unanimously.
Great.
The next item on the agenda, Madam Chair, is the Subcommittee for Policies and Procedures at the request of Office of Equity and Racial Justice. This follows a Board of Supervisors resolution. Well, let me back up. We previously reported to you on the board's resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. As part of that, the board directed the Chief Administrative Officer to take bold actions and transform county values, policies, practices, and community engagement to be more inclusive, responsive, and anti-racist. On April 6th, the Office of Equity and Racial Justice reported back to the board with the implementation framework. I'll now turn it over to Director Andrew Strong, Director of the Office of Equity and Racial Justice, to talk about that framework and specifically his request to establish a subcommittee for policies and procedures.
Thank you, Claudia. Y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. And first, Ramadan Mubarak to everyone who celebrates. And also, I just want to say I'm glad that we had a robust discussion on the subcommittee process, because that kind of explains, I think, a little bit why I think it's relevant to have a subcommittee for this process, because we could also expand it to the community. So let me give you a little bit more context. So like Claudia said, I reported back to the board at the Marathon board meeting on April 6th at about 9:30 at night, that some of y'all may have watched. And we talked a little bit about the board's direction to establish a process to solicit community input to identify county policies and practices that lead to or perpetuate racism. So my recommendation was to establish a subcommittee of the Human Relations Commission to help the OERJ facilitate the community involvement of that. And like I said, that could be expanded to be some type of town hall meeting. It could be more expansive than that, but the idea is really to have the OERG work directly with this group of leaders to flesh out what that process should look like. So my intent is to have this as a part of the Office of Equity and Racial Justice annual work plan. And we anticipate to start in November of this year. So the OERJ will work with county departments and the groups to create an action plan of policies and practices that we could potentially bring to the HRC subcommittee to discuss and bring it to the community to get feedback on those. And these meetings will include the relevant department heads. So we'll have the leadership from those departments at those meetings and the associated staff that may own or create these policies and procedures. But these meetings, like I said, could be town hall to gain broader feedback. And from these meetings, we want to create an action plan to develop and address any of the issues that we see with those policies and practices. And then that would also include a time frame to come back to the broader HRC to present those recommendations, but also to come back to the Board of Supervisors with suggested changes. So for your consideration today, hope you establish a subcommittee to work with the OERJ to facilitate this. So you can also consider what that looks like in the future. Do we want to expand that to a larger town hall? Do we want to include other community organizations that might not sit on this committee at the moment? That way, we already know there's folks out there like the ACLU and other organizations that already have policies and practices in mind, much like Project 100% that went to the board the same night that the board voted to take some action on. So I think of policies and procedures similar to that that will come to this subcommittee to address. So with that being said, I'm here to take questions and hope that you can establish this subcommittee.
I see Commission Member Cinnamon Clark's hand raised.
Yes, hello.
Hey.
My question specifically is, what do you think that the subcommittee, I know you talked about how you think they'll play into your current efforts, but what do you think the time commitment is for the subcommittee, and what do you envision as far as actual outcomes from that subcommittee?
Yeah, and thanks for that question, Commissioner Clark. I think it depends. And I know that's kind of very generous, but I do think it depends on what you develop the roles and responsibilities are for that subcommittee. Because like I said, we could have, it could be a broader subcommittee where, you know, they're responsible for facilitating town hall discussions around specific policies and practices. So that might be a little bit more involved around the planning process, you know, or if the subcommittee decides to say, okay, OERJ, you facilitate the development of this town hall with community outreach and engagement that's being brought to the table from the subcommittee. The role may be a little bit less intensive. So I think that's more for us to kind of flesh out, but depending, you know, it could definitely be more involved or not as much involved.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Madam Chair, with this item, similar to our last item, the chair and or the commission have the authority to establish this subcommittee, and the bylaws state that there'll be between 3 and 7 members, and if they exceed 7 members, that would take a commission vote or commission decision to do that. Open it up to questions. I think I saw Member Corey's hand up.
Can we also, like the other committees, add people from the public?
Yes.
Any other questions? Comments? Well, I have a comment. So I see this department a little different. If the goal is to reduce poverty in San Diego, the policy and decision makers are internal, the internal county leaders. And what we're asking is the leaders, decision makers, make decisions within the lens of equity. So in this particular case, the composition of the committee should also include those leaders that are actually making the decisions through an equity lens. Because this is across county, the whole county, and the work they're doing in all areas, including reducing poverty. That's just one area, but reducing poverty. So in my mind, when I see the composition of the subcommittee, it should include some, or at least some of those leaders that really are gonna make decisions, make changes, because they're delegated, they're hired, they're responsible for making changes. And we're asking them to make those changes, policies, procedures within an equity lens. So I just see it very different. Very different.
So
I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. It's my statement, my comment, my statement, my opinion.
That's a great, I think that's a great suggestion. And so I guess the question to you would be, are you saying the composition include some of those members of leadership who are actually implementing those policies? So you're talking about creating, you know, directors and general managers.
Yes, sir.
Responsible for influence. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. I wasn't initially thinking to be members of the subcommittee, but to be participants in that process, depending on what policies and practices. But I think what I'm hearing from you is at the makeup of that subcommittee needs to be some of those leaders from that level who are influencing policy across the operations level.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We can make that happen.
Member Perez has her hand raised.
Actually, I jumped ahead. This sounds like a really good committee, something we definitely need. And I just wanted to say that I would like to volunteer for that subcommittee. I need to leave a little early here, but I just wanted to keep my my vote in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we do have folks, members who are volunteering for the subcommittee. If you'd like to move forward with the formation of the subcommittee and based on your comments, Chair, what are the things the committee can return to is similar to what they did last time. Who all else needs to be on this subcommittee? You can do that. If you are amenable to doing that as chair, going ahead, we could move forward with the establishment of the subcommittee and once again ask for raised hands. So we could write them all down and record them. And if it exceeds 7, then we'll need to take that vote. Okay, so we have Ellen Nash. I know, let's see, Elena Perez, George Curry, Angela Elliott Santos, Warsan Artan, let me scroll down the screen. And for our members, I know we had Gwen Sanders and Nicole Murray Ramirez who had phoned in as members, as commission members. I didn't know if, I don't see hands raised.
I see Cinnamon Clark and
oh, okay.
And Angela Elliott Santos as far as in the chat.
I did get Angela Elliott Santos and I see Cinnamon Clark's hand raised. Okay. I know there are folks, members of the community who would also like to be appointed. I think that will be part of the discussion. Samuel Choi. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 names. Any that I missed? We have Warsan Artan, Angela Santos, George Curry, Elena Perez. We had Cinnamon Clark. Okay. I'll read out those names one last time. Ellen Nash, Elena Perez, George Curry, Angela Elliott Santos, Warsan Artan, Cinnamon Clark, Samuel Choi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is 7.
Perfect.
So that committee can be established and they can return back to the commission for additional names, because if they're going to add those members, other members' names, that will take a vote because you're going to be exceeding the 7.
Okay. Great.
We have, I know we are coming, we have about 14 minutes left. Madam Chair, we do have 2 items left on the agenda. Item 10 is a report from the Board of Supervisors resolution condemning xenophobia and anti-Asian racism. On April 6th, the board adopted a resolution condemning xenophobia and anti-Asian racism. It acknowledged the recent agenda presentations on anti-Asian hate incidences and reporting of hate incidences that were before this commission. The resolution also directed the Human Relations Commission and the Office of Equity and Racial Justice to hold a workshop on anti-Asian hate. The commission has had a suite of presentations this year on extremism, hate incidences, and hate crimes, and one more presentations planned for the next meeting by the the U.S. Attorney's Outreach Office, San Diego office, and the local Office for Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention from the Department of Homeland Security. They will be presenting on local efforts regarding violence prevention through community education, with a focus on prevention and early interventions, and how organizations like this commission can help in those efforts. Staff suggests that the anti-API hate workshop, as well as additional educational forums, become part of the Commission's anticipated work plan and strategic plan. Staff will provide an overview of the board letter. I will turn that over to Director Andrew Strong from the Office of Equity and Racial Justice to go over that item with you all. And there's no action required, but it's available also for discussion and questions. Director
Thank you,
Strong.
Claudia. And I'm actually not going to go in depth into the board letter because I think you did a good job of summarizing it. But I will just go back to that specific recommendation and the resolution. And knowing the urgency of this matter and knowing there's a lot of efforts that are going on right now in the community to listen to the API community to address some of the hate and issues. I see this as being that natural evolution and an opportunity to really to do some work around these issues and take what we're hearing from the community and put it into action through this workshop. But also knowing, thinking about how we're slowly reopening, right? We're starting to open up again. So there may be opportunity in the future to have an in-person event to where we're actually doing some work around this and really seeing folks' faces and you know, becoming a little closer as a community. So I think it is a good opportunity to add it to the work plan with your work plan, but with OERJ support. It'll definitely be supported and coordinated for our office of Equity and Racial Justice. But I just put that out there on the table as far as maybe hearing from this commission if you have thoughts or ideas of timing on that and what it should look like. I also know I spoke with the API coalition a little earlier last week, or so, a member of the coalition, and I think there's some plans for events in May. So you know, just thinking about the timing of some of these things, you know, coordinating with Asian Pacific Islander Month that's coming up, and just making sure that we're taking the next natural evolution of putting these things, these thoughts and ideas into action, and using this body to do some of that work. So again, no real action, but open for discussion on next steps.
Any comments or questions?
I don't see any hands raised, Madam Chair.
I have a question. The train is moving. I mean, this train is moving, and we're trying to get ahead of it. Yeah. But we also talk about our strategic planning piece, and it's almost like we're going to have to do them simultaneously. Yeah. So, you know, we need to think about what that looks like.
So, thank you, Chair Nash.
And then Nicole would like to speak after.
Oh, please go ahead, Vice Chair. Go ahead of me.
I think that we all realize that a C-19 has totally changed the way we would like to be more activists, let's say, on the ground. That being said, I have two questions. One, I've been attending some I hate Asian rallies, attended one this past weekend and one the weekend before. I go up to the organizers and let them know that I'm a member of the Human Relations Commission. I think I know that we can get cards from the county, that each commissioner could get a card. I think when we attend events that and they feel good, you go up to the organizer, be it a march, a demonstration, or a forum, and you give them your card and say, hey, here I'm representing the county commission. This way, word gets out that we're back and that we're involved, and that we're not only having meetings, that obviously that we're out there and supporting the communities in different social justice things. I know that, I mean, I've gotten 2 shots, doesn't say that I'm home free, but I understand why some people be reluctant to still go out. But I can tell you the last march I went to Sunday, the Asian Solidarity March, and most of them do go by the rules. Everyone was masked. It was 6 feet apart. It was a very successful event, and they knew I was there. They knew we were there, and I think all of us could do this. Sylvia, is there a way that you can get each commissioner a county card?
I can certainly look into that and report back to the board, or to the commission, excuse me.
Okay, thank you very much.
In regards to Chair Nash, your comments or your comments about the strategic planning, the board we had looked at strategic planning earlier, and the board at that time wanted to defer until after the mission statement had been completed. That has just been completed by this commission and has since been actually also presented to and accepted by the Board of Supervisors, recognizing the hard work that went into that. It is now time, the commission is now at a point where it can go ahead and start strategic planning at the next meeting, because it is on our future agenda items. At the next meeting, we do have that large presentation from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Department of Homeland Security. It's estimated to be about an hour and a half in total. We can talk about strategic planning, and what we had previously suggested is having the board consider either doing some off-commission meeting times or during committee meetings. And I believe at the time the commission had expressed a preference to do them during commission meetings. So we could return back with some suggestions and some options at the next meeting for that, so we can engage in that, because you're right, matters are moving, and frankly, you'll be doing your strategic planning and work plan for the next 1 to 2 years. At the same time, you're going to be flying the plane as you're building it, to a certain degree in that regard.
Right.
Because things still are arising. Matters are continue.
Thank you.
The last item on the agenda, Madam Chair Nash, is the updates on appointments and committee nominations.
I think, Sam,
I'm sorry. Member Choi, did I miss your hand? I apologize.
Yes.
No worries. I just want to echo what Andrew has brought up, and the fact that, I really appreciate serving on this commission and representing the SD API coalition, and that the timing for the presentation 2 meetings ago, and also the resolution that was passed by the supervisor, has all given us this momentum leading into May for Asian Pacific Heritage Month. So just want to make sure people are aware that we as a coalition are going to plan a town hall event sometime that first week. We're still deciding between a weeknight and a weekend day. But also what Commissioner Mira Ramirez raised is that I do see a lot of commissioners here that have shown up, which I think it is a big sign that we have built solidarity even within the coalition, within the commission here. And I appreciate others who have reached out to me and others at the API coalition in terms of collaborating. And members like Commissioner Gillies have reached out to offer resources from the ADL, for example. And I also know that May is also Jewish Heritage Month, and I think there are so many of these times in our calendar that we need to start kind of planning ahead as a commission, and using May as hopefully a first month where we can start putting things on the calendar, whether that's the official workshop that OERJ is going to put out as a action item from the resolution, or just others. As we know, there are different holidays and different events throughout the year that we need to uplift the different communities, and also use an opportunity to build a lot of cross-ethnic, cross-racial solidarity. So just wanted to make sure people can reach out to me and Andrew and others for this particular one in May, and looking forward to working on others as well as it relates to different ethnic and racial identities.
Mm-hmm.
And Member Curry had his hand raised.
Yes, please. I have a couple of things to mention. First of all, I would like to extend Ramadan Mubarak to all my brothers and sisters who are fasting, as well as those that are not fasting. It's an excellent opportunity for reaching out to each other and to the rest of the family. The other thing is that, just for your information, April is the Arab American Heritage Month. It was approved by the State Department of the US. It started a long time ago by Bush the father. Also, the city of San Diego last week unanimously voted a resolution to have the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month. We will be having the ceremony where Councilwoman Montgomery will be presenting that resolution to and you are invited to join us in this celebration. Thank you.
Chair Nash, we do have I don't believe there's any more hands raised in, regarding agenda item 10. We have 2 minutes left. I did want to leave time for Vice Chair Arton, I think, wanted to address and give well wishes for Ramadan, but I'll try to be quick on the update on appointments and committee nominations. The commission has 2 seats to appoint to. The commission had requested to delay that until there was more seats or members seated from the 10 open seats from the board offices. To date, there have been now 6 of those appointments made. 4 of those members you have been introduced to. We hope the other 2 will be before you at the next meeting. And I anticipate the remaining seats will be seated in the near future. We will need to gather the demographics and compile that information again to return back to you so that it is updated so you all can make that determination. We would suggest, given what's on the agenda and what is coming up, that we try to do that as a focus item in May and get that information out to you, updated demographics on this commission so that you all can make determinations. We do have over 55 applicants at the moment.
Wow, great.
Yes.
Thank you for that update.
So with that, Madam Chair, I did not have anything further, and I believe you had indicated you wanted to close it out with some comments by Member Arton.
Yes.
As we adjourn.
Yeah, thanks, Claudia, and thanks, Ellen. First, I want to apologize for being late. I had a work meeting, but as some of you already pointed out, Ramadan started actually last night. And a little bit about Ramadan. It's the 9th month of the lunar calendar, and this is a holy month for our community. We fast this month in pretty much a little bit before sunrise to a little bit after sunset. And this does not mean we only fast from eating and drinking water, but it also means it's a time for reflections of growth and a time to build a better relationship with our Creator, as well as our friends and families and other individuals. So on that note, thank you all so much for those of you who wished us a Ramadan Mubarak. And I would say, yeah, happy Ramadan and peace, blessings, and glad tidings to you all. Until next time. So thank you all so much.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now adjourn our meeting. Thank you. Thank you so much. Great meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll see everybody on April 27th.
Okay.
Thank you.